Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix's 443rd film from 2021. It's the vampire thriller called Night Teeth. This one's directed by Adam Randall and stars Jorge Lendeborg Jr., Debby Ryan, Lucy Fry, Raul Castillo, Sydney Sweeney, Megan Fox, and Alfie Allen. I'm Jesse. I'm your host. Thanks for joining me today for this Netflix original film. As always, if this is a film you haven't seen yet and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on because we will spoil this as we go. And I've got to say too, I guess this is one of the first English language films that we've covered on the show in quite a while. This is that COVID time of 2021 where Netflix were buying up international films left, right, and centre for people to watch at home. So, a bit of a Hollywood film, which I feel like it's been a while since we've done one of these. But let's get into it. Let's talk about our Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one, it's about a guy who steps in for his brother to drive some clients around for a night. They turn out to be vampires on a rampage to wipe out their enemies. That's as simple as I could put this plot. How did this one end up on Netflix? What did I find out about the film? So the tagline for this film is "Paint the Town Red." This is super phoned in. What a phoned in tagline. Obviously, Night Teeth is in relation to the teeth of a vampire, and these guys are running around at night. So even the title is pretty ordinary. On Netflix, their logline for the film is: a young driver picks up two mysterious women for a night of party hopping. But when his passengers reveal their true nature, he must fight to stay alive. That might intrigue you a little bit further. Around the world, in Spanish, it's called Jaws of the Night. That sounds like a shark movie. In Portuguese, it's called The Passengers. I don't mind that. That gives a bit of intrigue as to the passengers in the back of this car. In French, it's called Bite into the Night. Yeah, not bad. Hungarian and Turkish, it's called The Teeth of the Night. Nah. Lithuanian, Romanian, Russian, Fangs of the Night. Again, meh. Polish, Chinese, Ukrainian, Arabic, it's called Night Fangs. In Korean, it's called Night Tease. Maybe that's lost in translation a little bit. And in Vietnamese, it's called Sharp Fangs in the Night. So there you go, a range of different titles around the world for this film. In August of 2019, it was announced that Adam Randall would direct the film from a screenplay by Brent Dillon with Netflix distributing. We flash forward to February of 2020, where Jorge Lendeborg Jr., Debby Ryan, Lucy Fry, Alfie Allen, and Raul Castillo joined the cast of the film. And then in July of 2020, Alexander Ludwig, Brian Batt, and Marlene Forte joined the cast too. Principal photography began in February of 2020 in New Orleans and Los Angeles. Later in the year, production was halted due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite being about vampires, this film, the film doesn't actually use the word vampire. It's never spoken at any point in the film. If we're talking about the characters, Blair and Zoe, these are two of the vampire characters we'll talk about soon, but Lucy Fry, who plays Zoe, said, "I feel like we naturally settled into our sisterly dynamic. It just kind of happened with so much ease. We were in quite intense life experiences at the time when we met, and we were really lucky to kind of meet that in each other and support each other in such an intense filming experience and have such a blast going through it together." So there you go. I guess Lucy Fry and Debby Ryan had a good time making this movie together. Megan Fox and Sydney Sweeney, I mentioned, they are in this film. They only had one night of filming, and I'm telling you, it's pretty obvious they phoned this in as well. On IMDb, there was a question that someone asked if there will be a Night Teeth 2 film, because, yes, I guess this film does set up a sequel. One response was, "Come on, man." Quite humorous. This debuted at the Brooklyn Horror Film Festival as the premiere on the 16th of October, 2021. A little interesting side note, I read that because of this time during the COVID times, everyone in attendance had to be vaccinated to attend. It did hit Netflix worldwide on the 20th of October, 2021, and this is in time for their horror releases in October that year. At a budget of $21.7 million, which to me is quite crazy for this type of film. I guess there's some good visuals in it, but pretty big budget for Netflix for this sort of film. As said too, this was filmed in other parts of Louisiana as well as New Orleans and Los Angeles in California. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? On Rotten Tomatoes, it sits at 38%. That's on 50 reviews, so that is definitely rotten. The audience, a little bit higher at 49%. That's on more than 250 ratings. And then if we jump on over to IMDb, it sits at a 5.7 out of 10 on 25,000 ratings. So not too bad. Letterboxd, a little bit lower, 2.3 out of 5 on 36,000 ratings, but has been logged by 49,000 people. And we actually have a Metacritic score where they rate their films on a traffic light system of red for negative, yellow, and then green for positive. Metacritic sits in the yellow section for critics, a 42 out of 100 on 10 reviews, so middle range. But the audience, however, on 35 reviews, sits at a 6.3 out of 10, and that is green. So some positives there for this film. But you're all waiting for my early thoughts. What are my early thoughts on this film? This is one of the worst vampire films I've ever seen. I'm sorry. I don't understand how it cost so much or how it got developed. There's very little that works in this. I'm going to be pretty negative about this, so apologies first off. So the director, Adam Randall, this guy, he's done the TV show or the TV series called Slow Horses, which I've heard of, but I think the most surprising thing for fans of this show or for Netflix followers, he directed the film iBoy in 2017, which if we go way back in our catalogue, we covered, and it's one of our most listened to episodes, so that also had a Game of Thrones reference like this film does, which we'll talk about soon, but the main protagonist in that film was played by Maisie Williams, who plays Arya Stark in Game of Thrones 2. The characters in this one, let's talk about them. So Benny is the protagonist. He is the younger half-brother of Jay, who we'll talk about soon. Benny lives with his grandmother because his parents are dead. Jay sort of helped bring him up as almost like his step-in dad. He does some side DJing. He travels around on his skateboard to send out his music clips, I guess. And he also studies economics. So he wants to better the world. His half-brother Jay, needs to go out and look for his girlfriend or hunt some vampires to find his girlfriend. So this is how Benny gets involved, and he has to step in and drive his brother's car for the night for his clients. And this is where Benny meets our two vampire co-stars, Zoe and Blair. So Blair is the nice vampire who sort of flirts with Benny a bit and sort of highlights that there, whereas Zoe's the opposite. She's the bad vampire who's been a partner to the villain vampire Victor, who's in this film. So these girls mean no good during this night that Benny is driving them around. Jay, I mentioned before, Benny's half-brother. His girlfriend's kidnapped at the start of the film, so he's almost on his vengeance journey because he's a part of some gangster group or some mafia group that hunts vampires, I guess. And Victor, I mentioned, the bad vampire, who no longer wants to respect the rules. There's 3 rules set out between humans and vampires. Doesn't want to respect them anymore. He wants to rule the world, so it's a night of wiping everyone out. Eva and Grace, this is the little phoned-in cameo that was pointless from Sydney Sweeney and Megan Fox. They're literally in 30 seconds of screen time. It was, God. Anyway, let's talk about some scenes. What stood out, what didn't work, things I liked. The opening sequence, they were cool animated graphics that set the scene over the credits. Overall, this good nightscape. In saying that, it sort of cut to this CGI shot of the city, which was pretty ordinary. Benny's house, I like the location. It was a sick location. The mise-en-scène, the setup of his bedroom, it was really cool, well thought out. I really liked the vibes of that. There was this line where Benny goes to find the 2 vampires, and there's a concierge on the desk at this building who's going to lead him up to see the vampires, and her line to him is, "Please drink responsibly." I just had a bit of a laugh at that. And I liked when Benny takes the girl vampires to his place to hide, and his grandma's there, and she's got a baseball bat ready to take them out, and she's like, "Well, I like that Blair girl, but I don't need grandkids." That wasn't too bad, but the rest of it, what didn't work? Benny, when he meets Blair and Zoe for the first time, there's some lame joke about his zipper being down. And then they get in the car and they play the F, marry, kill game. That was bad too. And then Benny waits in this car park for the girls to come back. He drops them off, and there's this police officer that rocks up, and he's looking around the car park. No, it doesn't explain why, but this obviously freaks Benny out because he's got blood all over him from opening this bag that the girls left in the car. So Benny gets out of the car and he's running around, and then that's when he runs inside to see the vampires. And when he comes back out, it's revealed that the cop's on the vampire side. I don't know. And then that cop rocks up again later. Just didn't like it. The vampire girls reveal their big teeth in the car that Benny sees, and then he tries to get out of the car, and then Zoe's just like standing there. She just quickly jumped out of the car and standing there. That was rubbish. Benny takes this hit from a joint almost thing that the girls are smoking, the vampires are smoking in the car. It was just like, why? And then they sort of talk about it's got angel dust in it. What was the point? Because then they go into this gas station where they're a little bit high, and that was also pointless. I don't know, it was just like progressing for no reason. There's this whole club and fight and escape that just made me think at the end of that scene, this movie is so crap. Benny and Blair, there's this big lead up to them sort of getting to know each other and kissing. That was lame. And I think the most ridiculous thing I've seen in a vampire film is, and this is, I'm not a big fan of Twilight films, but Benny puts a rock on the brake of his car so he could auto start the car with a remote key that he's got in his hand, which was shown early in the start of the film of how to start the car. And then he crashes this car through the door so the light hits the villain vampires. It was just ridiculous. I'm sorry, but that was just rubbish. What was the film trying to say? Some themes, some motifs. It plays with that idea that you see often. I fell in love with a vampire, and this works because Benny ends up being one in the end. So there's no real discussion about how this works if he wasn't one. So that was a bit random. The vampires, I guess they're like the mafia and they create havoc. I'm kind of stretching, I guess. Those in power have to prove their worth, and working hard through Benny, I guess, and staying true to your dreams. That should be a theme, the idea that he wants to go study. He wants to prove himself in the music world. But it isn't really there because as soon as Benny gets rich at the end, there's no mention of what he's done to help his grandma or his music career. It was just like, I'm in a cool car and I can be rude to people now, so I'm all good. So I don't know what this film's trying to say. What else did I take away from this? I think a little bit more tone deafness. This police officer I mentioned before, he literally he's a white police officer, and he pulls a gun on a black Latino character in Benny and asks him if he has drugs on him. This is just like stereotypical rubbish that shouldn't be in a film, especially when there's a scene just before where Benny's driving through LA and he goes past a Black Lives Matter mural. Like, it didn't work, sorry. IMDb, there's often a moment where we say, did we get on IMDb to check any of the cast out? For me, I didn't need to look this up. Alfie Allen, who plays Victor, like straight away, as soon as he was on the screen, I was like, oh, Game of Thrones guy. But I completely forgot the name of the character. It's been so long since I've watched the show. I'm just like, oh, that guy. Oh, God, he's such a good villain. So he played Theon Greyjoy. I had to look up the character from Game of Thrones. So there you go. That's me done there. Some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas to finish this one off. The New York Times, an article in relation to this film, they played with the idea of, or the subline of, "You're so vain," with obviously that play on, or that pun with the word vain. I love that. I thought that was great. I'll sort of touch on this as well. The Night Teeth title. What an ordinary title. You need to, and maybe that's why you can't distinguish this from any other vampire film. So it just had to have a generic vampire title. Maybe that's it as well. Also, like Decider, in their review of the film, they said, "I saved all the vampire puns for the end. Night Teeth is toothless, it's bloodless, it's got dull fangs, it sucks, it has no bite, it needs a good dentist, etc." I just had a good laugh. I think I had more fun looking into this film and reading what people had said about it. Even though, like, there's some negative stuff, but there's a lot of positive stuff about this film online too. I think this plays throughout the film. It's mentioned multiple times. Everyone thinks that Benny would give good blood. They're all sort of tempted or lusting over his blood. Like, why? There was no explanation. Was it just because he hadn't been bitten before that he'd have pure blood? Is that the idea? Because otherwise, that made no sense. Would you willingly sign up to give your blood to a vampire? There's a scene where there's these two men just tied up giving their blood. Is this meant to provide some kind of satisfaction to a human to be sucked on? And and they don't explain in this version exactly how, because the girls just go at these two guys until they kill them. It's not like they even turn them. So I'm very confused what that meant. And, you have to be game to set up a sequel for a film like this one does at the end. We're 5 years later on. There's no word of it. So I don't think there's going to be a sequel for this film. And one of the rules, I said at the start, there's 3 rules. I can't remember the 3 of them. One of them was the idea of never, ever enter. And they said, they put emphasis on this. Don't enter Boyle Heights. What makes this neighborhood so different? Why? There was no explanation to these rules. Oh, sorry, I'm ranting. How has Jay been able to have all this knowledge and weapons about vampires, and Benny lives under the same roof of him and has no idea what his stepbrother or his half-brother or whatever he is does when he goes out at night? To me, that was wild as well. And these gem things that the vampires scan into at each location, one of them drops one early, so Benny picks it up. Like, where's the explanation? What are they? What do they represent? I would have loved that too. Anyway, I got to finish on a positive. LA as a city. How good is LA? It just looks beautiful. It just got this draw. It's a bit like New York City. It's that one of those cities that you're like, I'd love to go back there, love to be there. Great city. All right, so I got to wrap this one up. We give the films a rating out of 5. For me, like, this is one of the worst vampire films I've seen. I didn't like any of the Twilight films either, and I can't recommend anything in it. They could have had a lot of fun with this, with the cast, but it comes off as nothing new. It's very uninspired. Unfortunately for me, it's a 1.5 out of 5. So we're on socials. Give us a follow. Give us a like if you can. Share our posts. Give us 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. The question for this week on our socials: give me a better vampire film that isn't Twilight, that's better than this film. And I just wanted to pose that idea. There are so many good vampire films, and obviously Nosferatu. For me, Interview with a Vampire, that's a great film as well. What are some other good ones that you could suggest for me? We will be back next week. Next week, we have another film from 2021. This one is a French comedy called Stuck Together, or 8 Rue de la Humante. It's directed by Danny Boone and stars Danny Boone, Liliane Riviere, and Ivan Attal. So there you go, French comedy. Let's see if that can get me in the mood, get me laughing, because this film did not make me laugh at all. Thank you, as always, for joining me, and I will see you next week.